Dudes, how we doing? So as all of you Star Wars fans know, The Acolyte just premiered with 2 back-to-back episodes on Disney Plus last night, and personally, after watching it, I couldn't be happier with what we got from those first 2 episodes. Before I go any further, if you haven't watched The Acolyte, there's going to be some spoilers in this, so just go watch The Acolyte, I guess. Okay, look, as a Star Wars fan who isn't really well versed on the High Republic era, when I first heard that they were going to make a show that was going to take place 100 years before The Phantom Menace, I was intrigued, but also a little scared, to be honest with you. With any new Star Wars, you just have to hope that the creators took their time with the production to make that Star Wars feel like Star Wars. And with The Acolyte, I can say from where I'm sitting, I think they really nailed it. From the characters to the set design, the costuming. I mean, the sheer amount of weird, unique aliens and droids we saw roaming the streets and going into storefronts. Everything about the show felt so lived in, like it was a place I was going to, not just some set somewhere. It felt like a real lived in place, as much as a place with a giant 7-foot tall dog bear humanoid pantsless hairy Wookiee can feel real. But honestly, as my wife and I were watching the first 2 episodes, I kept turning over to her and she kept saying the same thing of like, dude, this is really good. And not in a surprising way where I didn't think it was going to be good, but more so how much of what I was watching made me feel like I was watching the Star Wars that we are all familiar with and love. Honestly, most of the show won me over in its smaller moments, whether it be a conversation or a small movement from one of the characters. So far, one of my favorite moments from these 2 episodes is when Sol and Yord have May and they're going to arrest her, and Yord immediately goes for his lightsaber, but Sol puts out his hand, kind of the same way that Ahsoka puts out her hand for Shin in the Ahsoka series. Just cool moments like that to not only show the difference in the characters, but also to double down on the message of what the show is trying to tell you, in that the Jedi are at a weird time at the end of what was considered their peak into this new era where maybe the rules that they've learned for their entire run aren't necessarily correct. And the character Yord being a perfect example of that. I mean, right at the beginning of episode 1, May says that a Jedi only pulls out their lightsaber if they plan to kill. And then Yord throughout those 2 episodes reaches for his lightsaber so many times and then even pulls it out like it's a flashlight when they're in the cave. And dude, the fight scenes, it was actually so rad to see Jedi that were more skilled use more hand-to-hand combat and honestly not even pull out a lightsaber when they needed to, just to show off how strong and how much of a Jedi master they were. Shouts out to my guy Ezra Bridger.
The Force is my ally. That's all I need.
Also, as a Star Wars fan, one of my favorite things with new Star Wars, or honestly any Star Wars, is when Star Wars references other Star Wars. I mean, there were so many nods to other points in the saga. The relationship between Sol and Osha being that she was framed for those crimes, almost exactly like Ahsoka and Anakin in the Clone Wars. I mean, even down to the framing, it was pretty uncanny. Honestly, I thought the actors did a great job. I mean, anytime there's a movie or project where you go into it knowing that one actor is playing 2 separate characters and there's potential for them to meet and interact on screen. Honestly, it kind of takes me out of it sometimes. It's very Parent Trappy, or whatever that movie with Tom Hardy when he's the British mafia guy and he plays those 2 different characters and they're like always on screen together. I thought Amanda Stenberg did really great having to play the role of Osha and of May, and when they interact on screen, it honestly felt really real. I mean, when one actor has to play 2 separate characters, it's kind of hard to separate those 2, at least for me, and I thought Amanda did a great job doing enough to separate those 2 characters to where they actually felt like 2 individual people. Now, to talk about the giant bearded Jedi with a ponytail elephant in the room, Master Sol is an incredibly captivating character. If you've watched any of my content or follow me in other places, you know that I love Qui-Gon Jinn from The Phantom Menace. I think his lessons and his messages that he teaches, not only in that movie, but when he pops up in places like the Clone Wars and even in Kenobi, are some of the best of the saga. And honestly, as I get older, those lessons in Star Wars resonate with me so much. And Qui-Gon Jinn is a well of them. And methodically, the vibes are very similar between a master like Master Soul and Qui-Gon Jinn. I mean, they're both so incredibly wise, and for a character to kind of do the Qui-Gon Jinn thing of, hey, maybe the Jedi Order isn't actually correct, and what they tell me to do might not be the thing I should do. It's very similar, and I personally love that. That's one of my favorite qualities about Qui-Gon Jinn. And from seeing Master Soul, the more we see of him, I'm sure that will get doubled down on, and it will be one of my favorite character traits from Master Soul moving forward. Also, like the lesson gems that Soul drops throughout those first two episodes are great, like Quiet Your Mind, or when he's talking to Osha about, hey, maybe I wasn't the greatest master. Like that self realization and self awareness is awesome to see in a Jedi Master, especially during a time when they're, like I said, at their peak and they kind of think they're infallible. Great example is Soul obviously having the mindset not to judge when he goes to investigate about his former Padawan and whether or not his former Padawan, Osha, actually committed the crimes that people are accusing her of. There was so much talk of attachment, and it really reminded me of Qui-Gon's attachment with Anakin, if you would like to use the word attachment. I'm sure you'll have different phrases for it in the comments, but seriously, Qui-Gon cared about Anakin in The Phantom Menace in the same way that Soul cares about Osha in this series. I mean, they even said in episode 1 when Osha is talking about her backstory that she was almost too old and the council didn't want her. I mean, Anakin. That's exactly what Anakin was. So it's very cool to see the similarities between characters like Soul and Qui-Gon, and then Osha and Anakin, and then later on, I mean, Soul and Osha, and then Anakin and Ahsoka. It's really cool. And like I said, I love when Star Wars references itself. Something that I would love to see from this show in terms of like what my number one desire that I really want to see, Hu Yang. Show me Hu Yang. I mean, they literally powered up Hu Yang at the beginning of the Jedi Order when it first started. I would love to see Hu Yang, whether he's interacting with some Jedi Padawans in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, or maybe we see him building a lightsaber in live action. I would love to see that. Or just give me a conversation between Hu Yang and Master Soul for a minute. I would just love to see them on screen together. Like I said, it might be a reach of a want, but if I had to pick something, just show me Hu Yang. Also, it's no mystery that the Jedi Master that rushes to help people no matter the situation and seems to be the most morally sound is literally named Soul. Look, at the end of the day, I'm super excited for the rest of this series. I mean, it's really promising after those first two episodes. As a Star Wars fan, all you can hope for is good Star Wars, and when you actually get what you want after you watch it and then form your own opinion, it's a fantastic feeling and it's exciting. Personally, I can't wait to live in this world a little bit more. I mean, I know I keep saying that I'm not well versed in the High Republic, but I am really not. I know very little about it, but watching this show as a Star Wars fan who's usually watching a show trying to do the Leonardo DiCaprio meme with everything that is a small reference or a little nod or a cameo or something, this is a show where I didn't really have that as much, and it was pretty refreshing to watch Star Wars and not be on edge waiting to see what I noticed the entire time. However, it does make me excited to go back and learn to maybe find those references. I mean, I'm sure those first two episodes and the rest of the show for that matter are jam packed with High Republic era references and cameos and nods. And this show lit a fire under me to go back and learn about that so I can watch this show again and then understand it. So much of my own fandom is piecing together Star Wars and dissecting what everything means, and I'm excited to do that with a new era that I really don't know about. Look, you can say I'm glazing or I'm gassing this up, but honestly, I'm genuinely excited about the rest of this show. I'm so stoked that I enjoy it, and I can't wait to see more. If you haven't watched it yet, and for some reason you're watching this before you actually go watch The Acolyte, whatever about my opinion on all of this, take that with a grain of salt. Maybe you will like it, maybe you won't. All I ask is that when you go to watch it, go in with an open mind. Don't listen to me, don't listen to your friend, just go watch it and form your own opinion. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. And either way, that's awesome. Just be nice to people. Thanks so much for watching me talk about this for a little bit. I'm excited to see more of The Acolyte, like I said, and I hope you are too. If you are, I'll be here talking about it. So your focus determines your reality. May the force be with you always. Later, dudes.